Hello, everyone. So nice to be here. As you might know, I am a speaker. Hello. And I really want to get a feel of how everyone is feeling. This is really the beginning of this conference, so I'd love some feedback on how everyone is feeling. How is everyone's day going? Getting a lot of hellos, getting a lot of highs. Okay. All right, that is some feedback. Actually, I'm going to give that feedback a 4 out of 10. Ooh, 4 out of 10. That is not very good. So I'm going to give you another chance. We got a 4 out of 10. That's the feedback that we have this first time I asked the question. So I'm going to ask again. Hello, everyone. How are we doing? I am a speaker, and I really would love to get a feel of how everyone is feeling today. And so I'd love to get some feedback on how everyone's feeling. Everything is fine. So far, it's been well. Okay. All right. That's some feedback. Hello. All right. I'm getting a lot of greetings. People are feeling excellent. Okay. All right. Okay. That's some feedback. Now, let me tell you how I kind of think that was. See, I'm looking for feedback to be faster. I want feedback to be faster. So we're going to actually put a time limit on this. I'm looking for a specific type of feedback, and I'm looking for a specific type of quantity. So in this type of assessment, it is a checkbox type of assessment. So we have a little bit of feedback on how I am looking for a response. So I want faster feedback, more specific, and a certain quantity. So I'm going to ask again. As a speaker, I really would love to see how everyone is feeling today. How are you enjoying the conference? Are you excited to learn about the power of performance feedback? Love to hear in the chats, how is everyone doing? Are you excited to learn about performance feedback? Doing very well, really great, excellent, so good, feeling great. All right, I'm loving the good vibes. I'm feeling a lot of good vibes. Terrific, fantastic. Okay, that was very good. This is very good, not too bad. I'm going to give that 7 out of 10. So definitely passing. We've improved from just greetings, saying hello, to actually giving that feedback on how we're feeling. So I'm going to give you a 7 out of 10. I am actually looking for words based off of our new industry standards. We have new regulations that we only want words that begin with the letter A. So awesome, amazing, audacious, anything like that. We want something a little bit specific, letter A. I am looking for a specific quantity. Our organization, we don't want to overload with a lot of words. We don't want giant paragraphs, but we don't want just one word answers. We're looking for 3 words that begin with the letter A to describe your day. And this time I'm going to give you 10 seconds to answer the question. So I see some people are getting ahead. Sir, I didn't say go just yet. All right. As a speaker, I would love to hear how everyone is doing today. I'd love to see in the chat, how is everyone doing? Amazing, aware, Apple, Amazon, awesome, AWS. Oh, these are amazing. All right, we have our feedback here. Act, agree, Azure, awesome. Oh, man. All right, I am loving this feedback. That is much more specific and what I was looking for. We now have a 10 out of 10. Woo! All right. 10 out of 10 on our feedback. Very well done. We're only 5 minutes in, and we have already improved our feedback. All right, look at those cheers. What fantastic cheers. Very good, everyone. Well, hello. My name is Amber Vanderburg, and I am so glad to be here today. I am the founder of the Pathways Group, where we work with teams really all over the world to improve performance. But before I did that, I actually was a football coach or a soccer coach for the Adidas Game Day Academies and Paris Saint-Germain PSG Academies in Bangalore, India, to coach widely one of the first generation of athletes on both an elite and a grassroots level. See, I became the only American, the only female, the only Christian, and the only blonde academy football coach for their academies. And whenever I came, I'm still getting feedback. I love this. Fantastic. And as I came to the academy, I noticed that our players were coming to our sessions, and they were standing in a line, kicking a ball, waiting for instruction. And they would come to our sessions and they would stand in a line, kick a ball, wait for direction. And they would stand in a line, kick a ball, wait for feedback. And while this may have been an efficient way to teach a skill, in a game scenario, it was a disaster. Oftentimes, our players, within the course of a match, within the course of a game, would kick the ball perfectly, exactly the way that we taught them. And then, before the play was even over, they would turn to the sideline to the coach for further direction and feedback. See, our players had mastered the task, but they didn't quite understand how it applied to the overall game scenario. And so we transformed our team from lines and laps and lectures to one of creativity, collaboration, and true performance within our team, true captainship within our team. And the first thing that we had to do was stop commanding the how and start clearly communicating the what and the why. In application, it looked a little something like this. Rather than stand in a line, kick a ball, wait for instruction, we provided challenges. So from here, kick the ball to knock down those 3 cones. Because in order to do that, you're going to have to kick with power and precision. And in a game scenario, whenever you pass, whenever you kick, whenever you shoot, you're also going to have to kick with power and precision. See, in order to give great performance feedback, we first must create an environment for great performance. And so, as we didn't dramatically do an overhaul of our communication, we made a slight shift, a slight pivot to clearly communicate our what and our why, and then provide opportunities for ownership within the how. Now, there were aspects of the game and aspects of football that we could not change, but we found that there were 4 major opportunities for ownership that we could provide for our players. And that was within our methods and our processes and our projects and our roles. I'll say that again. We had opportunities for ownership within our processes, our methods, our projects, and our roles. And from these new challenges, I saw some of the most heated debates I'd ever seen among 7-year-olds trying to decide if the best way to kick the ball was with the infoot or with the laces. In reality, both ways were right. And so we were able to expand our toolbox of resources so that we could perform at a higher level. And the reality is that with these opportunities for ownership came greater opportunities for conflict. Beforehand, there was only one way to kick the ball, but now we were having heated debates. And so with opportunities for ownership came a greater opportunity for conflict, but also came a greater opportunity for conversation over complacency. I'll say that again. Opportunities for ownership provide greater opportunity for conflict, but also provides a greater opportunity for conversation over complacency. Now, we didn't want to create an environment that would naturally have more conversations over complacency and not equip our team members to engage in these conversations in a healthy manner. The reality is that in our performance feedback, I don't want to be the only one giving feedback. In fact, there are times that I shouldn't even be the loudest voice on the field. There are other team members that have other insights, other relationships, and different types of feedback that might see something that I don't see. And so we wanted to equip our team members to engage in healthy conversations, healthy debates, and give quality feedback. And so one thing that we did whenever we were working with our team is we actually engaged in proactive conversations. Now, proactive conversations is a conversation that I have whenever I am beginning a new project, whenever I come into a new team, whenever I have a new client. And a proactive conversation simply goes like this. At some point in this relationship, at some point in this project, at some point in our working time together, there is going to be conflict. There's going to be tension. There's going to be heat. And so while our emotions are low now, let us proactively discuss how we're going to handle that situation whenever it inevitably arises. And this does a couple things. First, it creates an expectation for tension and for that healthy conflict to occur in teams. Sometimes teams are hesitant to engage in those conversations because we don't want to admit that tension is there. But a proactive conversation not only acknowledges that tension does happen within teams, we actually expect it to happen. And it actually can be very healthy for our team because that's how we get to conversations over complacency. The second thing that it does is it creates a game plan and it creates a script that we can operate off of. And so there's not ambiguity of what might maybe happen. You actually have a script that you can operate off of. And so you can engage in those conversations with more knowledge and more confidence of what will happen whenever that tension inevitably arises. It also helps us to prevent against one of the greatest barriers to great performance feedback, and that is the fundamental attribution error. Now, the fundamental attribution error is really just a fancy way of saying that so often we judge other people by their behaviors while we judge ourselves by our intentions. And we see this within teams all the time. We see this within programmers and developers and coders all of the time. In fact, I was working with one team really just a few months ago, and there was a team member that was coming into the meetings and was sometimes seen as abrupt, sometimes seen as abrasive. Some even said malicious, but his intent was to be passionate, was to be persuasive. And so we began the conversation by asking, what was your intent? What were you trying to do? And from there, we were able to approach the conversation from more of a coaching aspect and really partner with the individual to bring the intended behavior and the perceived behavior a little bit closer together. And I encourage teams to engage in these quick 5 to 10 minute conversations, again, at the beginning of a milestone or at the beginning of a project, beginning of a new client relationship. And it can really set a foundation for great conversations and performance feedback within your team. Now, it's important to know the reason why we are giving feedback. Whenever I am working with our teams, it is critical that we get specific to get strategic. We get specific to get strategic. See, there are 3 major purposes of performance feedback, and knowing the purpose behind your feedback will allow you to be specific in a catered way to be strategic to improve performance. See, the first purpose of performance feedback is to encourage desired behavior, to encourage desired behavior. Whenever I was a football coach, I would sometimes hear, or a soccer coach, I would sometimes hear coaches at the end of a match come to their players and say, "Hey, good game, well done, keep up the good work," which sounds really good, but it's not specific enough that the player knows what needs to be repeated. What specifically was well done? What type of behavior are we specifically encouraging? And while saying good job may sound nice, it actually is not a type of performance feedback that can lead to improved performance. And so we want to be specific to be strategic. A second purpose of performance feedback is to correct undesired behavior. Whenever I was a football coach and we were down at halftime, I had one player that loved to come into the locker room at halftime and tell us in detail what we needed to do to win. With exact confidence, he would say, guys, we just need to play better. And he was right. We did need to play better, but it wasn't specific enough for us to actually have a game plan to improve our performance to win the game. And whenever we're giving performance feedback to our team members, it's important that we actually point out specifically what behavior we want corrected and actually outline the action steps that we want to improve. Now, this doesn't take a lot of extra time. In fact, we would begin by asking a series of whats and whys. So we need to play better. Okay, what specifically do we need to do a little bit better? Well, we keep on turning the ball over. And so if we keep possession of the ball, then that'll be one way that we can play better. Okay, how can we keep the ball more? Well, if we make clearer passes, then we can maintain possession. Okay, how can we maintain possession? Well, if I keep my eyes up and actually look before I kick, that's something that I can do to maintain that possession. That only took 3 more questions of whats and whys for us to actually come up with a game plan and a course of action to correct or improve our behavior. And that goes into my third purpose of performance feedback, which is to coach. Coaching is whenever you have feedback, you have behavior that you want to continuously improve. And so it's not something that is a corrective behavior. It is actually coaching. So you're guiding and helping your team members along the way. Whenever you are working with your team and giving performance feedback, it's important to first ask yourself the question, what is the purpose of this performance feedback? Why am I having this conversation and what's the desired outcome? Is it to encourage, to correct, or to coach my behavior? And having this sort of guidance is really helpful to providing great performance feedback. And as we are communicating with our teams, it's important that we communicate our ideas clearly and precisely. One of my favorite authors, Dr. Mark Rutland, he writes that great communication boils down to the right message to the right audience at the right message to the right audience at the right time in the right way. So those are 4 major opportunities for us to improve our performance. We're delivering our message, the right message to the right audience at the right time in the right way. And it's important to be mindful of that, especially as we are giving performance feedback. One thing that I do is keep in mind the emotion of the feedback. See, I don't want to give feedback that can be very personal in an email or a text. If we're giving personal feedback, it's important that we be as personal as possible. And in this remote time, oftentimes it's easy to focus a lot on the message and forget the method of communication that we use. There is a spectrum of emotion that comes with our performance feedback. We must be mindful of that in the spectrum of methods of communication that we use. If something is more informational, then a text and email is actually preferred. If we have something that is highly emotional, it's important that we be as personal as possible. In the middle phases, I actually work with teams and ask the questions. How many emails is it going to take to solve this problem or to reach a solution to this challenge before it's important for us to pick up the phone? See, between each span of time between each correspondence, emotions can build, and that's more time and energy that you're spending thinking on that problem. And so sometimes it's important to take the method of communication out of email and put it into a faster feedback loop. So either that be a video conference, a phone call, something like that. So be mindful of the method of communication that you're using within your team. Now, I only have a couple minutes left, and we've gone through a lot of different forms of feedback. whether you're using vague feedback, like the first time that I gave you a 4 out of 10, and that was it. We didn't really know what to do with on that. A checkbox system, which gave us a little bit more information, or actually gave very specific information so that we could be strategic, then it's important to keep that in mind as we are giving our feedback to improve our performance. I've given you a lot of information. I'm reminded of one last story from whenever I was coaching football. See, I had a young lad named Achinthia, and Achinthia was 6 years old, and he was so excited for his first day of football. He came running out onto the field, and he began yelling, "Pass! Pass! Pass!" And I noticed that Achinthia was yelling pass even whenever the other team had the ball. And he was yelling pass whenever he was miles away from the action. And he was yelling pass even whenever he had the ball. And so he was running with the ball, going, "Pass, pass, pass!" And so I asked Achinthia, "Why are you yelling pass?" And he looked up at me and he said, "Miss Amber, ma'am, I do not know what it means. I only know it is a football word." And sometimes I hear organizations and leaders sound a little bit like my friend Achinthia, yelling, "Leadership, performance, feedback, we got this, woo!" Because we know that these are really good words that can lead to great goals. But if we're in the wrong position, if we're miles away from the action, or even if we have the ball and don't know in which direction we're going, then saying these words are not only ineffective, but they're actually detrimental to our overall communication. So if we first take the time to be in a position to receive the ball and lay a foundation of great performance, then we'll be able to give great performance feedback and truly catapult the performance within our teams to score big goals. Thank you all so much for having me today. My name is Amber Vanderburg. Please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, on Twitter. I would love to connect.
Thank you so much, Talia. Amber, that was amazing. So now, ahora vamos a corrernos a la charla de Talia Nasi desde Estados Unidos sobre Testing in Production.